They said Earth was primitive, loud, emotionally unstable. A young species crawling onto the galactic stage with fists still clenched from the wars they barely survived. The Rix didn't disagree. From orbit, Earth looked modest, green-brown continents swirled with clouds, a blue oceanic sheen hiding the scars of conflict below. Compared to the structured megacities of the Zalari or the crystalline hive worlds of the SYRR, Earth felt chaotic. But that chaos had earned them a seat at the galactic table. The Rix had seen it firsthand. Humans arrived late, files incomplete, protocols ignored. One of them, young, unranked, interrupted a centuries-old Rilvathi elder during a formal address without hesitation. Not out of disrespect, but urgency. They demanded action when diplomacy called for delay. They moved fast, thought faster, felt deeply. It was disarming. The Rix had expected disorder, but not influence. Yet in less than a decade, humans had brokered 3 major ceasefires, neutralized 2 AI incursions, and navigated a trade war into submission without a single shot. Their methods were unorthodox: frank speech, rapid countermeasures, a stubborn refusal to accept what others called galactic inevitabilities. They weren't impressed by tradition. They were allergic to fatalism. Still, the Rix wrote in his report, humans are impulsive, flawed, occasionally brilliant, but not dangerous. He believed it. Until he watched them play. A human military simulation, labeled harmless, unfolded over hours. Holograms flared with color-coded chaos. What started as defense spiraled into full planetary isolation, supply chain sabotage, infrastructure subversion. And they did it smiling. Half the team treated the simulation like a game. The other half strategized like gods playing chess. They didn't just defend. They dismantled. Later, one human apologized for the intensity, laughed, said it was just for fun. The Rix nodded, but something in him stayed cold. The same beings who shared music, offered gifts, cried during peace negotiations, could turn unflinchingly efficient when challenged. Compassionate yet calculating. He began noticing more. Every human ship had redundancies, overprepared. Their medical teams trained for tri-species triage. Their engineers could convert an ore hauler into a battleship with 30 hours and desperation. They were ready for things the galaxy had long forgotten to fear. They didn't speak of monsters. They trained for them. Therix's admiration grew, but so did unease. When humans told stories, they rarely ended with peace. They spoke of perseverance through fire, triumph from ruin. Their victories were earned, not inherited. Always against something stronger. And always at a cost. These weren't the tales of a dominant race. They were the survival notes of a species that had been prey, long before it became predator. In the delegate's commons, he once overheard a conversation. A Zalari merchant joked about human volatility. The human responded simply, "We're not volatile. We just remember what happened when we weren't." That line stayed with him. The Rix sought out Earth's literature. Its music. He expected war chants, but found sorrow, regret, hope tangled with trauma. A species carrying its pain like an inheritance, not a weapon, but one they could use if pushed. He documented it neutrally, of course. Cultural resilience patterns show high post-trauma functionality. But that was a lie of objectivity. What he meant was, these people suffer beautifully, and they remember. He watched footage of rescue teams in collapsed colonies, humans crawling through fire for strangers. He reviewed their response protocols, always risking more, staying longer, pushing harder than other species deemed necessary. They didn't believe in acceptable losses. They didn't accept inevitability. They rejected it outright. Still, none of this screamed danger. Intensity, yes. Risk, certainly. But not threat. Then came the archived footage from the Saraveth uprising. Humans deployed last, against orders. The coalition forces had already retreated. Civilians were being harvested. When humans landed, they didn't secure zones, they cleared them. Efficient. Fast. Unforgiving. And when the Saraveth begged for mercy, The humans gave it, but not before disabling their ability to ever do it again. It wasn't rage. It was method. The Rix updated his report. Humans possess a capacity for focused retaliation, but only under ethical provocation. It still felt insufficient. He kept watching. Kept logging. Kept trying to name the thing under their skin. He met Isla during a delegation tour. Soft-spoken. Keen listener. She asked more questions than she answered. Her insight cut deeper than most species' weaponry. When he mentioned human aggression, she tilted her head. "Do you think it's aggression?" she asked. "Or do you just mistake conviction for hostility because you've never had to fight for peace?" That silenced him more than any threat could have. Humans weren't loud because they lacked control. They were loud because silence had failed them. They weren't fast because of panic, but because history had taught them that slow responses meant graves. Their adaptability wasn't evolutionary, it was forged. The Rix closed his log that night with a line that would echo for years. "They burn with something the stars forgot. It isn't violence. It's will. And I don't know if that's a blessing or a warning." And somewhere, deep in his gut, a warning bell he couldn't explain began to ring. The Sura station was supposed to be a symbol. A multi-species project built in neutral orbit, it housed diplomats, scientists, and cultural liaisons. No weapons bays. No military wings. A floating declaration of peace. For weeks it worked. Until it didn't. The pirates came without warning. 8 vessels, retrofitted and armed, punched through the calm's net and jammed distress signals. Coalition protocols dictated delay, stall, negotiate, de-escalate. But pirates don't negotiate. They slaughter. They breached the central ring, cut power to the habitat sectors, and started executing hostages. The Maori, the Ryvek, even the Jalari, all scattered. Some tried to fight, most surrendered, a few begged. The pirates laughed. They expected panic. Compliance. Then the humans moved. There were only 19 of them on Sura. Engineers. Medics. 1 linguist. No soldiers. No command structure. But they acted in tandem. One sealed the docking tunnel with a bypass code not taught in manuals. 2 redirected emergency power to the lower sectors without waiting for approval. They coordinated silently over shortwave, switching to burst transmissions when they realized the pirates were listening. Within minutes, they split into 3 strike teams and improvised armor from maintenance plating. No rank. No orders. Just motion. The Rix watched it all unfold from the observatory. At first, he assumed the humans were evacuating. Then he saw one of them enter a decompressed corridor with nothing but a tether line and a plasma cutter. 5 minutes later, 2 pirate squads were down. He didn't kill them. He just severed the gravity stabilizers and let physics do the rest. A young human medic used her own body as a shield to move wounded Ryvek from Sector C. When questioned later, she only said, "No one else was moving them." She carried 3. The 4th didn't make it. She carried him anyway. One engineer rerouted oxygen from admin chambers to medbays, knowing it would leave himself exposed. He kept the flow open for 47 minutes before asphyxiating in his seat, still typing override commands. His last input forced a pressure lock that stopped pirate reinforcements from breaching the inner ring. His badge read, "Systems Tech, Level 2. When the pirates realized the humans were organizing resistance, they responded with force. But humans weren't just defending. They were hunting. Each ambush was precise. Low visibility, off-axis entry, choke point control. They didn't scream. They didn't shout. They moved like muscle memory. One of them jury-rigged a fire suppression drone to deploy tear gas through the vent systems. Another used discarded pipe wiring as a trip line, synchronized with a broken maintenance bot's power cell to trigger an improvised blast. Not lethal, but disorienting. They never stopped moving. Every decision built pressure. Every action reclaimed ground. Not for glory. For control. Within 2 hours, pirates began transmitting surrender codes. Not to the coalition. To the humans. The Rix, still hidden, recorded the aftermath. He couldn't reconcile what he'd seen. These weren't warriors. They weren't trained for war. But they didn't hesitate. They didn't break. They adapted and responded with terrifying clarity. Post-incident reports labeled it tactical resilience under duress. But the numbers told the truth. 19 humans. 0 formal command. 72 hostages saved. 13 pirates captured alive. 4 dead. Not one shot fired by coalition forces. The Zalari diplomats sent condolences. The Malari offered apologies. The humans requested full logs and began rebuilding the oxygen systems before debriefs even began. When asked what prompted such risk, one of them answered, "Because no one else was going to stop them." That answer haunted the Rix more than the violence. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't ego. It was necessity. He reviewed pirate chatter transcripts. Before their capture, several expressed disbelief. One said, "We thought they were just support staff." Another whispered, "They moved like they'd done this before." Maybe they had. Not these individuals, but their species. They didn't need preparation. They carried survival in their bloodstream. They didn't panic. They calculated. And when every other species waited for instruction, humans acted. The Rix wrote in his log that night, "They did not reclaim the station with force. They reclaimed it with intent. Their weapons were timing, coordination, and unwillingness to accept loss." He remembered one pirate, trembling, as he was pulled from a breached corridor. "We were told humans don't retaliate," he said. "We were told they care too much." They do. That's what makes them dangerous. Later, when the coalition reviewed the event, they praised the humans, briefly. Quietly. No medals. No broadcasts. Just a line in the report. "Without the intervention of human personnel, total casualty projections estimated at 78%. No one spoke of it again. But the pirates did. Word spread through black channels. Earth was no longer marked as soft. It was marked unpredictable. The Rix closed his revised assessment file with one line. "They don't fight because they're strong. They fight because no one else will." In the days that followed the Sura Station incident, the coalition's tone shifted. There were no formal thank yous. No investigations into the pirates' funding. No charges filed against the Maori Confederacy, despite overwhelming circumstantial evidence. The Coalition High Council cited insufficient proof and fragile interstellar stability as reasons for inaction. It wasn't justice. It was appeasement. Humans noticed. They didn't protest or release statements. They went quiet. Delegates from Earth began missing meetings. Trade negotiations stalled. Research partnerships were postponed without explanation. Where once they had been energetic, challenging, even disruptive, the humans now became passive observers. Not absent, but distant. A subtle disengagement that unsettled the chamber more than anger would have. The Rix observed their withdrawal firsthand. He'd expected outrage or demands. Instead, he got silence. No retaliation, no threats, just measured detachment. He approached one human diplomat, a former field coordinator named Rourke, hoping to understand. Rourke met his question with a flat stare and replied, "You showed us what matters to you. We're adjusting accordingly." Behind closed doors, rumors grew. Earth was redirecting fleets to unmonitored systems. Satellite data showed quiet mobilization. Their AI traffic patterns changed, encrypted bursts, shifted routes, entire nodes going dark. Coalition analysts flagged the activity as defensive reorganization, but the timing said otherwise. The Rix requested access to Earth's internal memos through diplomatic channels. He received only one message in return. "The Coalition has chosen inaction. We are choosing preparation." The Maori Confederacy denied involvement with the pirate raid. They called the incident a regrettable third-party action, and reminded the Council that the pirates had no confirmed allegiance. Their ambassador even offered a vague statement of solidarity. It was hollow. Everyone knew the truth, but none dared confront it. The balance of power was too fragile. Confronting a major species risked conflict. So they labeled the evidence inconclusive and moved on. But humans don't move on. They remember. One by one, Earth's partnerships dissolved. They recalled specialists from joint research stations. Economic ties were quietly severed. Shared defense programs were suspended, pending internal review. When asked, the humans responded with a simple phrase: "Until accountability exists, trust cannot." The Rix met with Isla again, the same soft-spoken diplomat he'd once admired for her warmth. Now she spoke with precision. No anger. No emotion. Just conclusions. "You want peace without accountability," she said. "That's not peace. That's postponement." He asked if Earth planned to leave the coalition. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Leave? No. But we're done pretending we belong to a system that protects silence over truth." Her resignation came hours later. No speech. No gesture. Just absence. The Rix returned to his logs, unsure how to phrase what he'd seen. There was no event to record, no battle, no scandal. Just the quiet unraveling of something vital. The humans hadn't lost faith in the coalition. They'd simply recognized its limits, and moved beyond it. Reports began surfacing from fringe sectors. Pirate enclaves abandoned without a fight. Smuggling rings dismantled with surgical precision. No declarations, no credits exchanged. Entire operations wiped clean. Coalition security forces denied involvement. Earth refused comment. Then came the leak. An anonymous source released classified surveillance footage. Maori military officers meeting with the pirate leaders weeks before the Sura attack. Strategic data exchanged. Resource allocations confirmed. It was undeniable. And the coalition did nothing. A formal review was proposed but never conducted. The Maori claimed fabrication. The council deferred judgment. Earth remained silent. But silence from humans is never empty. It's a signal. Ships disappeared from known lanes. Outer relay beacons stopped receiving updates from Earth's frontier colonies. Long-range observers noted strange energy readings near uncharted systems. Human comms traffic decreased by 40%, encrypted spikes replaced regular chatter. It was preparation, not withdrawal. The Rix understood it too late. The coalition hadn't just failed Earth, they'd exposed themselves as unreliable. Not in opposition, but in values. To humans, inaction in the face of truth wasn't neutrality. It was betrayal. In private logs, coalition analysts tried to downplay the risk. They called humans reactive, not strategic. They believed Earth's fury would fade with time. The Rix disagreed. He wrote, "Humans do not forget betrayal. They study it, internalize it, and respond only when they've decided there is no longer a choice." He recalled Isla's final words. "We didn't come here to be liked. We came here to build something better. But if better isn't welcome, we'll build alone." No one noticed at first when 3 human-controlled systems decommissioned their coalition communication arrays. Or when Earth's quantum relay signatures stopped syncing with the central network. The changes were small, deliberate, invisible to anyone who wasn't watching. But the Rix was watching. And he knew what it meant. The humans weren't abandoning the galaxy. They were bracing for it. It began without warning. No speeches, no ultimatums, no diplomatic noise. One morning, Maori outposts simply vanished. Not destroyed, erased. No debris fields. No energy signatures. No survivors. One moment they existed, and the next they were absent from every sensor grid. Communications dead. Surveillance blank. Coalition analysts blamed solar anomalies, but they were guessing. Earth issued no statement. No one claimed responsibility. But those who had watched the signs, the fleet reroutes, the encrypted silence, the withdrawal from protocol, recognized it for what it was: calculated response. In closed-session briefings, security councils scrambled to decipher the method. There was no known technology in the registry that could eliminate entire structures without residue. Coalition engineers reviewed deep space satellite captures and noticed patterns, gravity fluctuations milliseconds before each outpost disappeared. Something immense had moved, but nothing registered visually. Only shadows where mass should have been. The Rix watched the playback a dozen times. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence in the room said enough. The Coalition had crossed a line, not by action, but by failure. And Earth had answered. Whispers spread through military channels. A human ghost fleet, off-grid, invisible, operating with a doctrine unknown to conventional forces. Composed of modular crafts without identifiable hulls. No transponders. No visible drives. Only outcomes. Entire crews trained not just for engagement, but for erasure. The Maori officially denounced the attacks. They screamed for sanctions, demanded justice. The irony twisted like a blade through every chamber. No one echoed their outrage. Not after Sura. Not after the leak. And not when Earth continued to remain completely, utterly silent. But silence, again, wasn't peace. It was pressure. Delegates noted subtle changes in Earth's diplomatic behavior. Their representatives returned, but they asked no questions, proposed no collaborations, shared no data. They listened. They recorded. They nodded. And they watched. The Rix visited the Lunar Archive facility under diplomatic clearance, hoping to understand the change. What he found disturbed him more than aggression could have. Inside, AI systems ran simulations, endless variations of interstellar conflicts. Not fantasy. Not defense scenarios. Detailed models based on real political fractures. They didn't simulate how to win wars. They simulated how to prevent escalation while being unchallenged. He asked one analyst why Earth was modeling war at this scale. The reply came without hesitation. Because peace is only as strong as the fear of losing it. The line wasn't spoken with pride. It was clinical. A fact, not a threat. Elsewhere, drills were happening. Not for show. No press. No observers. Just rotating shifts of personnel running containment, precision strikes, and rapid withdrawal. They practiced with terrifying accuracy. Civilian tech repurposed mid-drill. AI rerouted into war mode subroutines. They weren't preparing for a defensive war. They were preparing to end one before it could start. The Rix met with a retired human general, now a diplomatic advisor. He asked why Earth hadn't filed a formal protest or demanded reparation. "We don't do protests," the general said. "We keep records. We act when patterns appear. And we don't explain ourselves to people who made silence their shield." The Rix asked what Earth wanted. "We wanted accountability," the man replied. "Now we want memory. We want them to remember what happens when they think we'll do nothing." On the outer rim, 3 smuggling rings with ties to the Maori collapsed within 24 hours. Docks destroyed, caches burned, ships vanished. Witnesses claimed ships with no identifiers arrived, delivered 2 encrypted messages, one in Maori code, one in human binary, and left. No gunfire. Just disappearance. Coalition Command, still hoping for plausible deniability, called it a coincidence. Then came the transmission. One of the outer edge observation stations picked up a pulse burst. Not encrypted. Not hidden. It contained logs, timestamps, routes, crew rosters, intercepted messages, proof of Maori involvement in the Sura attack. But the logs weren't sent to the Coalition. They were sent to every independent system outside Coalition jurisdiction. Every neutral party. Every minor trading post. Everyone that wasn't involved in the cover-up. Earth hadn't exposed the truth to punish. They exposed it to isolate. Now no one would trust the Maori. Trade collapsed. Defense pacts retracted. Border alliances dissolved. They weren't attacked. They were abandoned. The final blow wasn't firepower. It was reputation. Earth made no move to demand territory or impose terms. They didn't take. They didn't threaten. They simply ensured no one would ever risk aligning with betrayal again. It was clean. Complete. Irreversible. The Ricks realized too late, this wasn't vengeance. It was doctrine. A human doctrine built not on conquest, but consequence. Their silence had never been absence. It had been a countdown. The chamber was full, but no one spoke. Not at first. The final summit had been called in haste, emergency status, with every senior delegate in attendance. The atmosphere hung heavy, anticipation curdled into dread. The Maori representative stood at the center, attempting to reclaim the narrative. He mocked Earth's silence, calling their restraint cowardice. He called the disappearances fabrications, the accusations baseless. He smiled too easily for a man backed into a corner. Then the human delegate stepped forward and changed everything. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't issue threats. He placed a data drive on the central table and keyed in a single command. The holograms rose, clean, time-stamped logs. Video of Maori military convoys linking with pirate vessels. Audio of directives authorizing the Sura assault. Satellite records, full-spectrum signatures, coded orders in the Maori High language. No editing. No commentary. Just the truth laid bare. No one moved. The Maori delegate stammered, claiming manipulation. He accused Earth of manufacturing evidence. But the room didn't believe him anymore. They saw too much. The silence was no longer passive. It was judgment. The human didn't argue. He simply issued a follow-up transmission. Within seconds, every major network across the galaxy began receiving the same data. Civilian feeds. Academic lines. Commercial relays. Unfiltered. Total transparency. Earth hadn't brought the information for debate. They brought it for history. Then came the second file. Blueprints. Technological models beyond the registry. Visuals of vessels with no listed classification. Weapons platforms designed for sublight annihilation. Drones with logic cores running independent of command. Not hypothetical. Deployed. Operational. Some had already been seen, and dismissed as anomalies. Now they had names. Now they had owners. And Earth had just made their capabilities public. One delegate asked shakily why they were showing this now. The human replied, "Because we are done asking for justice." The council demanded an explanation. They got one. For years, Earth had adapted. Observed. Played by the rules of a galaxy that claimed order but practiced hierarchy. They followed every protocol, joined every treaty, offered every courtesy. They held back. They restrained. They believed in diplomacy. And when they were betrayed, they gave the Council a chance to make it right. The Council chose silence. So Earth built something else. Not an empire. Not a rebellion. A doctrine. A new standard where betrayal was not tolerated, and truth didn't wait for permission. A doctrine where peace wasn't assumed, it was enforced. Where protection wasn't symbolic, it was real. They weren't interested in ruling. They were ensuring. The rules would no longer be dictated by those most powerful. They would be enforced by those least willing to let others suffer. Earth had waited long enough. They didn't come to destroy. They came to remove doubt. Within 72 hours, every Maori military ship had been flanked, not attacked, not fired upon. Just flanked. Shadowed by vessels that weren't supposed to exist. Their coordinates matched no known registry, but they hovered precisely where they needed to be. Close enough for sensors. Far enough for implication. The Maori surrendered not under fire, but under inevitability. Their systems were dismantled cleanly, one by one. Not a single casualty. Not a single explosion. Earth left no damage. Just silence, compliance, and permanent memory. In the weeks that followed, the coalition restructured. Not because of war. Because of awareness. No one challenged Earth. No one retaliated. They simply recalculated what was possible. And what was now unacceptable. The Rix recorded his final report with hands he barely kept steady. He had witnessed a transformation, not in humans, but in the galaxy's perception of them. The quiet delegates, the passionate builders, the unpredictable allies, they had revealed what lay beneath all along. Not cruelty. Not conquest. Capacity. A scale of capability that most species couldn't comprehend, because they had never needed it. But humanity had. And so, they built it. Not to use, but to finish what others wouldn't start. In one of his final interviews, Lyrix asked a human commander why they hadn't responded sooner. He answered without hesitation. Because we hoped someone else would stand up first. The log ended with a single line, one the entire galaxy would quote in years to come. Gods help you when humans get angry, because when they do, no gods will stop them.